Okay, Rabbi, so we're on Daf Kuf Samech Hey Amid Aleph, and we're just recapping a line from the Mishnah that, at face value, doesn't really need to imply to be saying anything. The line of the Mishnah was Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer Hakol Keminhag HaMedina. Everything is according to what the accepted minhag of the community is, which is referring to specifically what type of shtar is acceptable to use. And essentially what Shimon Gamliel is basically saying is, look, if the standard practice of your community is to use a regular shtar when enacting gittin and when enacting transactions, then use a regular shtar. If the minhag is to use a get makusher, use a regular get use a get makusher, use a sewn up shtar. And so the question is there, what is he telling me that I don't already know? So that's really the Gemara's question. V'tana kama lesle minhag Medina? So is that to suggest that the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Is he telling me something that's controversial? So Amar Ravashi, Ba'asra denehigi b'pashut v'amar le avidli pashut v'alzal avidli makushar kepeda. Right? He says, no. He says, Ravashi says, listen, if you're dealing with a community where the minhag is to write a regular shtar, and the person who's contracting the shtar, who's hiring the sofer to write the shtar, says, I want you to write me a regular shtar, and the sofer goes ahead and writes a get makusher instead, so then we can assume that that's not a valid document, because that's not what the customer ordered, and it's not therefore a valid document, and therefore not only is it not valid for the transaction, but if a man tries to use it to divorce his wife, it won't work. It simply won't work, because that's not what the customer ordered. Nehigi makusher v'amarle avidli makusher. Nehigi b'makusher v'avidle avidli makusher. Vel azal avidle pasher k'peda. We can also safely assume the converse, that if you're dealing with a place where the minhag is to write a get makusher, and the customer orders a get makusher, and the sofer delivers him a get pashut, so then you can assume that this is not valid, because if the sofer writes a regular shtar, that's not going to be acceptable. Ki pligi ba'asr dedehigi b'pashut u'makusher va'amar le'avidli pashut va'ozal avidle makusher. So where's the controversy? The controversy is, what if you're dealing with a community where amol they write a regular shtar, and amol they write a get makusher. The customer orders a shtar pashut. He orders a regular shtar. The sofer draws up for him a get makusher, which is a more complex, labor-intensive kind of project. So mar sover kipeda, mar sover maramakom hulo. So this is where there's a machlokas. That Rabbi Shimon, the Chachamim hold that no, if the customer specifically ordered a regular shtar, and the sofer did this whole elaborate get makusher, so then you can assume that the customer is unhappy. This is not the shtar that he ordered, and therefore it's not going to work. However, the other opinion, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel of our Mishnah, says no, it's mare makam hulo. In other words, when he says hakol keminhag HaMedina is, it's acceptable as long as there is such a minhag to write a get makusher, even though the sofer did not conform to the instructions of the customer. Nonetheless, it's a valid legal document. Why? Because we assume that the customer, when he said, draw for me a get pashut, a simple shtar, he wasn't saying it has to be a simple shtar. He was saying, for your convenience, if you want to do a simple shtar, that's fine. So in other words, the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel interprets the statement as being not a requirement, but rather as an accommodation for convenience. And we're going to see that there's a consistent machlokus regarding this issue, as do we interpret the instructions of the customer as something specific or something merely made as an accommodation. Now it's interesting because the Gemara does not offer the converse situation. What if the customer orders a get makusher and the sofer writes a get pashut? So there, I think it's going to be harder for there to be a machlokus in this matter. I think even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would agree that the fact that the customer dafka ordered a makusher, which is a more elaborate, labor-intensive kind of contract, would imply that he dafka meant it for it to be makusher. But that's not something that the Gemara addresses right now. Amar Abaye, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Lazar, Kulu Svir Luhu Mara Makom Hulo. So there are three Tanoim who all hold of the same idea, that sometimes when a person gives a specific instruction or makes a statement or declaration, don't interpret it to mean specifically that, but rather interpret it as being an accommodation for convenience sake, and therefore, even if it's not specifically exactly like the way he said, it's still kosher. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Hada Amran. So the first one is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. As we said, even though the customer ordered a get pashut, he didn't mean dafka that it has to be a get pashut, and therefore, if the sofer draws up a get makusher, it's still kosher. Rabbi Shimon did not. Rabbi Shimon Omer im hita al l'shevach harezu mekudeshes. There's an interesting machlokus in Maseches Kiddushin. What if a man gives a woman a coin and he says, Hareyat mikudeshes li b'kesef zu, or b'tabas kesef zu? He says, I hereby am giving you Kiddushin of a silver coin. He puts it in her hand, she accepts it, and then she opens up and discovers that it's gold. She discovers it's gold. So the question is that a valid Kiddushin, or do we have to worry about a mekach tos, that really this was done under false pretenses? So the Chachamim say it's a mekach tos. It's not valid, because he said it's silver, and it's not silver. But Reb Shimon is of the opinion, what are you talking about? He upgraded her. He gave her more than the value of what he said. So he was basically trying to imply to her that even if it was only silver, would you still want to marry me?
Or he would have charata that he made it was
right. No, so that's the point. Reb Shimon says he doesn't have charata. Mm-hmm. He knows what he's doing, and he's happy with the fact that she got the gold. The question is it a valid kiddush? Reb Shimon says, sure. The reason why he said silver was because he didn't want to, he didn't want to inflate her expectations. So he wanted to surprise her with something even nicer. So therefore, it's a valid kiddushin. It's not meant to be taken precisely.
Yes, the reverse would be a mekach tos.
The reverse would be a mekach tos. And now, by the way, the Rashbam also points out an interesting discussion in the Gemara over there. Reb Shimon would agree in the following situation. Let's say he says to her, "You are hereby mekudeshes to me on the condition that I'm a Levi," and she accepts it, but then she discovers that he's a Kohen. So you would say, well, of course, if she wants to be married to a Levi, that's prestigious. It's even more prestigious to be married to a Kohen, right? So Reb Shimon says, no, that's not going to work. She could say, I didn't bargain for a Kohen. You know why? The language of the Gemara is, I don't want a shoe that's too big for my foot. In other words, I don't need someone who's going to be so prestigious that he's going to lord it over me all the time. I'm of a certain class. I'd rather marry someone of my own class than marry someone of a higher class, because then it could create tension in the relationship.
Unless she was a bas Kohen herself.
Unless she's a bas Kohen herself, then perhaps you could make the argument. But anyway, but not necessarily. Rebbe Lazar, so the third opinion is Rebbe Lazar. Ditnan ha'isha sha'amra hiskaba ligita mimakom ploni v'kiblu lo mimakom acher pasol Rebbe Lazar machshir. Mar savar kepedo, mar savar maramakom ula. The third machlokas Rebbe Lazar is also of the same idea. And that is that there's a machlokas. What if a woman appoints a shaliach and she says to him, you can accept my get. My get can be found, if you go to Thornhill today, you can pick up my get. And the shaliach, instead of going to Thornhill, picks it up from somewhere a little bit more distant from there. He goes down to Niagara and picks up the get. So the question is did he fulfill his shlichus, and is the get delivery a valid get delivery? So the Chachamim say no. She told him specifically, pick up the get in Thornhill. And if he didn't pick it up in Thornhill, he hasn't fulfilled his shlichus. The get has not been validly delivered according to her specifications. But Rebbe Lazar is of the opinion, no. She was just trying to create convenience. She knew that the guy was going to be in Thornhill, so she told him, you can find the guy in Thornhill to pick up the get. If you happen to be somewhere else and you run into the guy who's going to give the get, so then pick it up from him there. It doesn't matter. She wasn't being specific, and that's the same idea. Next, Pashat Shekasav Bo Eid Echad Chulei Pasuk. So the Mishnah had also said two things. The Mishnah had said that we know that one of the differences between a get makusher and a get pashat is a get makusher requires 3 signatories, 3 edim, and a regular shtar requires only 2 edim. And therefore the Mishnah had said, if a get makusher has less than 3, it has only 2, it's pasul. And if a regular shtar has less than 2 edim, it only has 1 eid, so then that too is pasul. So the Gemara's question is very logical. It says, Bishlam and Makusha Shakasabo Shneidim Puzzled. It's the Ritzal Gadaita Chamina, whole of Alma Kosher, Hachanami Kosher, Kamashmalan de Puzzle. Elapasha Shakasabo Eid Echad Pshita. The Gemara's question is like this. I can understand why the Mishnah has to tell me that if a person used only 2 witnesses in a get Makusher instead of the normal 3, it's puzzle, because I might have thought, well, maybe that's only lechatchila that you need 3. But b'di'evid, if you have 2, it's okay, because we know that 2 witnesses are acceptable in another kind of shtar. That I understand. But what I don't understand is why does the Mishnah have to make a point of telling me that if there's only 1 witness in a regular shtar, that it's puzzle? That should be obvious. That's biblical. The Torah says that you have to have 2 witnesses at all times. So why do I need the Mishnah to tell me that if the shtar is only signed by 1 witness, that it's puzzle? That's obvious. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abaye lo nitzracha dafilu eid echad bichsa ve'eid echad bipeh. Abaye tells us a big chiddush. He says, what the Mishnah is communicating to me is that even if, in the following scenario, you have a shtar that says that Shimon owes Reuven $100 and it's signed by 1 witness, okay, signed by Yosef. Then you have a person who comes along and testifies that I too, Binyamin comes along and he says, I too was present at the time when the loan was made. So, and when the shtar was drawn up. I just didn't sign. So I am a witness to it. So now you have 2 witnesses to the loan. One is written, is a signatory in the shtar. The other is testifying orally. So the chiddush is that you cannot conjoin 2 witnesses if one is written and one is oral, even though they're both legitimate witnesses to the loan. But you cannot connect the 2. They either have to be both oral or they have to be both signatories, but you can't mix and match. That's the chiddush of our Mishnah. It's telling me that even when you have an oral witness together with the 1 signatory in the shtar, it's not kosher. Now the Rashbam makes an interesting point. He says, what does it mean that it's not kosher? We believe that the loan took place, but we don't give the power of the shtar as a tool of collection, as an instrument of collection. What are the ramifications? The ramifications are a loan made with a shtar can collect from the chasim mishubadim, can collect from encumbered property, like real estate that's already been sold off. But a loan that's made orally cannot collect from encumbered property. And that's the difference. That's the way the Rashbam learns this whole sugya, is that the difference is the shtar kosher or not? The answer is no. Is the loan still enforceable and based in? Of course, because we have 2 witnesses that the loan took place. But we don't have a shtar to affirm that, and therefore the creditor can only collect from unencumbered property, not encumbered property. Okay, now a meimar achshir be'eid echad bichsa ve'eid echad al peh. But a meimar actually acted in exactly the opposite way. He had a case like this, where a creditor produces a shtar with 1 signatory, and then he brings with him to Beis Din a witness who was a witness to it and orally testifies to that. And a meimar said, based on that, we can ratify the shtar, and the creditor can collect from even encumbered property. So Amar le Ravashi la meimar v'hada bayamai. So Ravashi sees what's going on, and he says to Meimar, what about Abaya's objection? He says that that's not good. So Amar le lo shamia li klamer lo severely. So Meimar said in a very polite way, I never heard that from Abaya. Meaning what he was saying was, in a very euphemistic, polite way, I don't hold of Abaya. He didn't want to say I don't hold of Abaya. He just said, I never heard that. Okay? Now, so the Gemara says, Elakash Shamas Nisan. Okay, fine, Amima. We can appreciate that you don't paskin like Abaya in this case. But what are you going to do with the question on our Mishnah? Abaya was coming to answer a question. Why does the Mishnah have to overstate the obvious? And Abaya said the chiddush is that even when you have 1 witness who's oral to accompany the written witness, but according to you, Amimar, that's kosher. So what was our Mishnah addressing to say that it's puzzle? So hakamash malon d'shnaim b'mekusher ke'ed echad b'pashut. Mahasam pesula deoraisa av hachanami pesula deoraisa. So Amimar says that no, that's not why the Mishnah wrote this halacha, that 1 witness in a shtar is puzzle. It's not coming for itself. It's coming to reflect upon the halacha of 2 witnesses in a get makusher is puzzle. You might have thought that when the Mishnah says that 2 witnesses in a get makusher is puzzle, that's only lechatchila. But maybe b'di'evid, maybe there's some way of substantiating such a shtar. at least maybe to collect using from unencumbered property, you can use the shtar. Comes along the Chiddush and says, no, this get is totally puzzle. It's chaspa ba'alma. It is completely useless. It's as if a regular shtar had been written with one signatory. When a shtar is written with one signatory, it's a completely useless instrument. It has no use whatsoever. So too, that's the status of a get makusher with only two witnesses. That's the purpose of why the Mishnah said a shtar with one witness is possible. Not for itself, but rather to reflect upon the status of a get makusher with two signatories. And now the Gemara says Teda, and I'm going to prove to you, says Ameimar, that I'm right. That a shtar that has one signatory but is accompanied by an oral witness that's kosher to collect. And how can I prove that to you? Because I'm going to show you the following story. Desholchu mitam chavrai leRabbi Yirmiyah eid echad b'ksav ve'eid echad al peh mahu she'itztarfu. Because this is exactly the question that the Chevra asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. They said, is such a situation kosher or not? Can a creditor collect if he has a shtar with one signatory accompanied by an oral witness? Now, the Rashbam tells us the background information. All the way back on Daf Chav Gimel, we learned the story about Rabbi Yirmiyah. He was ejected from the Beis Medrash because he asked what was deemed to be a frivolous question. And they basically said, Arois, Arois. They said, get out of here, Rabbi Yirmiyah. I'm sure they were much more polite than that, but they asked him to leave. And what?
Probably not that.
Right? They asked him to leave. They said, this is draining us a cup too much. Well, Rabbi Yirmiyah was no slouch, and he was probably the most brilliant of the Chabura. But they felt that he was draining them a cup too much, so they asked him to leave. When they asked it, they had a quandary. They didn't have Rabbi Yirmiyah present because he was ejected from the Beis Medrash. So they sent him the question, and through his answering of the question, he was brought back into the Beis. He was welcomed back in. And this is the whole back and forth that we're going to see. What was the question? So according to this first version, the question was exactly our case. One signatory in the shtar, one oral witness. Is it good or not? So aliba de Tanakama de Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha lo tiboylach dafilu shnayim biksabu shnayim al peh lo mitztarfi elakiti boylach aliba de Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha shnayim biksabu shnayim al peh hu de mitztarfi val eid echad biksav echad al peh lo mitztarfinan odilma lo shna. So just to get the background information, there's a machlokus in the Gemara in Sanhedrin as follows. When we say that you need two witnesses to testify about an event or a transaction, is that how did the witnesses witness the event? Can they have witnessed the event separately? Let's say there's a stadium of 1,000 people, and one guy's sitting in the west wing and the other guy's sitting in the east wing, but they witnessed the same thing. Are those two witnesses conjoinable? Can they come now together to the Beis Din to testify? Or is that invalid because they were not together at the time when they witnessed the event? This is a machlokas between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yeshua ben Korach. The Chachamim say it's not acceptable. So if they're going to say it's not acceptable in that situation, then presumably, surely in this situation where one signatory is written and the other witness is oral, so then that's also for sure not going to work. So we're not asking according to that opinion. But according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, who says that even if they saw it in different places, but they saw the same event, they can still testify together. What will be the halacha over here? Would we say that Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha would admit that here it's no good because one is written and one is oral? Or would he say that just like two witnesses who witness the same event from different places, it's acceptable, so too from different venues, one written and one oral, that's also okay. So shalach luhu ani eini kedai sheshalachtem li elakach das talmidchem noita sheyitzdarfu. Rabbi Yirmiyah answered back very humbly. Remember, he's on the outs right now. So he says, I'm not worthy for you to ask me this question, right? However, I, as your student, respond that it would seem to me that it's okay. That it's okay. So Neymar says, you see this story? You see that Rabbi Yirmiyah said it's okay, so that's why I paskin that it's okay. So Amar Lei, Anan Hachim Asninan La. So Rav Ashi says back to Neymar, it's funny that you heard the story that way. I heard the story another way. That wasn't the shaila they asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. I heard the shaila was the shalchu lechavrai Rabbi Yirmiyah shnaim sheidu echad beveis din zeh ve'echad beveis din zeh ma'u sheyavo beis din eitzel beis din v'yitzdarfu. The question really was, you have two witnesses who witness an event, but then they split up. Reuven goes and testifies in Beis Din Aleph, and Shimon testifies in Beis Din Beis. And now, neither Beis Din has a valid testimony of two witnesses. So how can they enact the testimony? Well, can the two Batei Din come together under one roof, convene as one Beis Din, as one mega Beis Din, and then, based on the fact that they privately heard the two testimonies, can join the two testimonies now together and act upon the testimonies. That's the Shaila. So the Gemara now says, Aliba de Tanakama de Reb Nassan lo tiboy lach dafilu bechad Beis Din and ami lo mitztarfi. Ela ki tiboy lach aliba de Reb Nassan bechad Beidina hu de mitztarfi vol bitrei Beidina lo mitztarfi ol dilma lo shna. There's another machlokus in Sanhedrin. The machlokus is when witnesses come to testify in Beis Din, must they come together? So the Tanakama holds, yes, they must come together to testify. They have to be in the same room when they're testifying, and then we can cross-examine them independently afterwards. But Reb Nassan says no, even if one comes on Sunday, the other one comes on Monday, but they end up saying the exact same thing, that testimony is still called two witnesses testifying. And therefore that's acceptable. So according to the Tanakama, if even in one Beis Din we don't accept if they come separately, then surely if they come separately, one in Beis Din A and one in Beis Din B, then for sure that's no good. But the question is according to Rabbi Nassan. He says that even if they come one after the other on two separate days, it's acceptable. What if they come to two separate Batei Din? Is that also acceptable? That's the shaila they asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. V'shalach lehu anieni kedai she'atem shalachtem li elakach da'as talmidchem noita sheyitzdarfu. And again, the same answer that he said, I'm not worthy for you to ask me this question, but it would seem to me, it would seem to this student of yours that it would be okay. It would be okay, according to Reb Nassan at least, that they can be mitzdarif, that the two testimonies can be joined together as long as the Beis Din comes together. Now, Mar Barchia Amar Hachi Shalchulei. Now, it's interesting. Those are the two versions. Now we have a third version. No, that wasn't the Shaila they asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. This is the Shaila. Mar Barchia Amar Hachi Shalchulei. Shnaim sheheidu bebeis din zeh, v'chazu v'heidim bebeis din zeh. Mao sheyavo echad mikol beis din v'yitztarfu. The Shaila was like this. Two witnesses testified in Beis Din A, and the very same two witnesses testified in Beis Din B. And this was before either Beis Din was able to conclude the case. But they received, each Beis Din, each tribunal received the exact same testimony. And now the question is, for whatever reason, both Batei Din have been disbanded. For whatever reason, they were not able to reconvene. But you're able to get one guy from Beis Din A and two guys from Beis Din B and get them together. They've already heard the testimony. The question is, can they reconstitute the Beis Din so that it's not the original Beis Din, but a combo of a portion of Beis Din A and a portion of Beis Din B? And since each dayan heard the testimonies, can they paskin based on that? Now, aliba de Rabbi Nassan lo tiboylach hashta edam mitzarfinan dayanim mibaya elakitiboylach aliba de Tanakama de Rabbi Nassan edam hu delo mitzarfinan avol dayanim mitzarfinan ol dilma lo shna. And the question is just the opposite. Of course, according to Rabbi Nassan, this would be okay. He says because if edam can testify separately, then certainly dayanim can hear testimony separately. You don't need all the dayanim to be together to hear the testimony at the same time. But the question is according to the Tanakama who argues with Reb Nassan and says that Edom cannot testify separately. Okay, fine. Edom cannot testify separately because they have to be one group. But can dayanim hear testimony separately and still then reconvene and paskin together or not? Are the dayanim just have the same status as the Edom, or can we be more lenient? So shalach lahu ani eni kedai shatem shalachtem li elakach das talmidchem noita sheyitzdarfu. And once again, Ravina felt that you could allow them to join together these dayanim. I'm not worthy, but this is what I think. So now we have version number 4, the final version. Ravina Omar hachi shalchulei. That wasn't the shaila they asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. They asked him this shaila. Shlosh shiyash v'lekaimes ashtar umeis echad mehen tzrich lemichtav b'mosav tlasa habina b'chad le'soei olav. The question is like this. We know that there's something called kiyum hashtar. If a certain a claimant says that this shtar that the creditor has against me is a forged shtar, then the Beis Din will require the creditor who's holding the shtar to verify the signatures. So he comes to Beis Din, he brings witnesses who recognize the signatures, and Beis Din says, okay, he's verified, he's mekayim the shtar. And all of a sudden, before they're able to write up the paper that says the shtar has been verified, one of the dayanim passes away. So they're going to write, the Beis Din is going to sign their names. There's only going to be 2 signatories instead of 3 because one of the dayanim is deceased. So the question is, when they write the shtar and they say, b'mosav tlasa, that we, as a duly constituted Beis Din, were able to verify the shtar, do they have to also point out, oh, and by the way, before the shtar was signed, one of us died? Do they have to write that or not? Now, the reason why you'd have to write it is because otherwise it looks fishy. You're stating that there was a Beis Din. Why then are there only 2 signatures? There should be 3 signatures. But on the other hand, you could argue, maybe no. Maybe 2 signatures of 2 dayanim is sufficient, and if you have a kasha, no. So one of the dayanim didn't sign. But these 2 guys are valid testifiers that there was a duly constituted Beis Din. So shalach lahu ani eini kedai sha'atem shalachtem li elakach das talmidchem noite shetzrichem lemichtav b'mosav tlasa havina v'chad leisoe. So again, Rabbi Yirmiyah answered the question. He says, I'm not worthy, but if you're asking me the question, it would seem to me that it would be necessary for them to write it, that one of us is deceased, because otherwise it's going to look too suspicious. And va'alda ailuhu Rabbi Yirmiyah b'vei medrash. The Gemara concludes by saying that it was for this shaila that Rabbi Yirmiyah answered, whichever one of the 4 versions you subscribe to, that they allowed him back into the base medrash. Bob?
How do you get 2 base then trying the same case?
Well, they may not even know about it. There's no cell phones. 2 witnesses walk in and they say, we're here to testify that we are witness. We know that this is a case coming up before you. We want you to know that this is what happened. There's no easy transmission of information, so that's why. So the Beis Din takes a record of it, and then they discover the facts afterwards. Let's take a look at the Mishnah. Chasav bo zuzin meya de'inun sloim esrin ein lo ela esrin. So the whole topic of this Mishnah is when you have inconsistency in the shtar. What is the power of the shtar? And here's the first example. The shtar says that Shimon owes Ruvain 100 zuz, which is 20 sela. Now that's incorrect, because how much is 100 zuz? 100 zuz is 25 sela, because a sela is 4 times a zuz. So someone's done bad math, right? Someone went to a cheder where they didn't teach math, right? So this is a problem. So what is the power of the shtar? So the Mishnah says the power of the shtar is the lesser amount. The creditor can only collect 80 zuz and not 100 zuz. Because why? Because amotzi mechavero olav harayim. You want to extract from a muchsak, from someone who's a possessor, so then you have to bring proof. All your proof is the shtar. One part of the shtar says 100, the other part says 80. You can only collect the smaller amount. And therefore, conversely, Similarly, if there's an inconsistency that says that Shimon owes Ruvain 100 zuz, which is 30 sela, now how much is 30 sela? 120. So you got 100 versus 120, so the creditor can only collect 100. You can only collect the lesser amount.
Inflation.
Yeah. Now, kesef zuzin de inun v'nimchak ein pachos mishtayim. Now let's say there's a shtar that says Shimon owes Ruvain silver zuzim, and then there's an erasure, and the amount is blotted out. So the word zuzim is in the plural, and therefore he can collect 2 silver zuz. That's the minimum amount that is implied by zuzin in the plural, but he can't collect more. Kesef sloyin de'inun v'nimchak ein pachas mishtayim. If it says 2 selas, or if it says sloim made out of kesef, so then the most he can collect from that shtar is 2 selas of silver. Darkonos de'inun v'nimchak ein pachas mishtayim. And the same thing with draka, which is another denomination of coin. Basically, it goes according to what the minimum amount, is, as far as the word darkonos, which is minimum, is 2. And that's the most that he can collect. Kasav bo milamala mana umilamata masayim, milamala masayim umilamata mana, hakol holech achar hatachton. But then the Mishnah says, now hold on a second, if there's an inconsistency, but it's in two separate paragraphs, one is in the top paragraph and one is in the bottom paragraph, so then you always follow the lower paragraph, even if that's the larger amount. So if, therefore, for example, the top one says 100 and the bottom says 200, or the top says 200 and the bottom says 100, whatever's written in the bottom paragraph is the one that has the gravitas and carries the weight. And the reason is because the last part of the shtar is the one that has the most import legally. As long, like the Rashbam says, as it's not recorded in the last line. Remember, the last line can't contain any modified information. So, imkein lama kos min esa elyon, shim timachek os echas min hatachton yilamid mina elyon. So what's the purpose of writing anything in the first paragraph if you only look at the second paragraph anyway? The answer is it's an insurance policy. That in the event that the second paragraph should get smudged or blotted out, you always have the first paragraph to sort of state what is being done. But in the event that it's perfectly legible, the second paragraph, you always go according to the information in the second paragraph. Let's take a look now at the Gemara very quickly. Tanu Rabbana. Kesef ein pachos midina. That in the shtar it says the word kesef, and that's all it says. Silver. So the word silver could mean any denomination. So the only thing that the guy is able to collect is 1 dinar of silver. That's the standard currency of kesef. Medinar kesef. Kesef dinrin, v'dinrin kesef, ein pachos mishnei dinrin. If it says kesef dinrin or dinrin kesef, silver dinars in the plural, or dinars of silver in the plural, so then that's no less than 2. So that's the most that he can extract from this shtar. That's 2 dinars. Okay, kesef bedinrin ein pachos mibishnei dinrin dahav kesef. However, let's say he adds a letter base. Kesef bedinari. Silver. I've given you silver that is equivalent to dinars. Now, what he means to say is that I've given you silver that is equivalent to a dinar of a different kind of dinar than silver. What he means, therefore, because of that extra letter base, what he means to say, therefore, is that it's not a silver dinar, but it's the other kind of dinar, which the only other kind of dinar is a gold dinar. And by the way, a gold dinar is worth 25 times what a silver dinar is. So that letter base increased the value of the shtar exponentially. And therefore, what it's meant, if it just says kesef bid dinarim, it means a minimum of 2. This shtar is worth a minimum of 2 gold dinars of kesef that you owe me, and therefore it's a minimum of 2 gold dinars. Now, Omar Mar, let's take a look and go back. Kesef ein pachos midinar kesef. We said that if all the shtar says is that you owe me kesef, then it's a minimum of 1 dinar. So the ema nascha. How do you know that it's a silver coin? Maybe it's silver ingot, which, according to Tosfos, is worth even less than a dinar of silver. So, Amar Rabbi Elazar ditzivbe matbeya. The answer is because not only does it say silver, it says silver currency. And therefore, because it says currency, we know that it's a coin. The ema priti, but maybe it's small silver coins. Let's say, it's not a silver dollar, it's a silver half dollar, like they used to manufacture. So, Amar Rav Papa, ba'asr de losagi priti de kaspa. We're talking about where, in this particular locale, there is no lower currency than the silver dinar. There is no silver currency less than the silver dollar. They don't make silver half dollars. Okay, that's the answer. Tana Rabbanim will finish with this. The Brisa says, dahav, that if it says in the shtar, gold, period, so ein pachos mi dinar dahav, then that implies a minimum of 1 gold dinar, and therefore that's the minimum, that's the most that the guy can extract with the shtar. Dahav dinarin v'dinarin dahav, ein pachos mishmei dinarin dahav. If it says golden dinars, or dinars of gold, so that applies a minimum of 2 dinars, and therefore that's what the shtar is collectible for. You can collect a maximum of the shtar of 2 gold dinars. But dahav bedinarin, ein pachos mibishnei dinarin kesef dahav. But if it says, I've given you gold that is worth dinarin, bid dinarin, with that extra letter base, that implies that the value of the gold is being compared to a dinar of another kind of dinar, other than the gold dinar. So then he's referring to silver dinars. And since it says dinars without saying how many dinars, then the most that the shtar is worth 2 silver dinars of gold, meaning that that's what the guy can collect. He can collect enough gold to be worth 2 silver dinars, which is much less than 2 golden dinars. And this is where we'll hold it today. We'll analyze this price in Yirtzeh Hashem tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.